Here we are.
Hey, Gary. And hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. And that was a great intro.
Yeah. We
Keep getting a little better.
We still got our bears cautioning you, advising you 6 feet apart.
6 feet, bro. Yep.
Well, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you. How you been?
I've been good. Been crazy with all kinds of work.
Good.
Some of it for our friends at Rhino Grateful Dead.
You know, it's we've all kind of lost track of the time here, but Fridays now feel like Fridays because of this for me, because it's, you know, something that is on the calendar every Friday now. So I kind of got a bit of a sense of the days now, or at least this one day. The other 6 are a bit of a blur.
Right. But we're really happy to be here. We've got a really cool, never before seen video artifact from the Grateful Dead in the early 90s, of which I don't think we see enough. I think there's some really good things to be said for the 90s, and maybe we'll find some more gems like that.
I agree. I've got a list here. I've got my list out. I won't show it too quickly, but we're going to be calling up quite a few more videos from the vault that are unseen, some other things, including some things from the early 90s right up to the mid 90s. So we're going to be bouncing around. We've got a great show tonight, a great show next week, which we'll get to in a bit, and guests galore, including tonight and next week and the week after. So it's going to be a fun run.
It sure will. And we've got a great friend to help out, don't we?
We do. Tonight, we've got our very good friend, Jesse.
Jesse Jarnow.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good night tonight. We do want to also talk about our charity tonight.
Yeah.
Gary?
Well, you know, Jesse knows a little bit about it, so we might want to bring him in right now, do you think?
Yeah. He's going to... There he is.
There he is.
Hey!
Hey!
Not as tall as Walton, but
I like that.
Got my space. Hey, guys.
Be the man you wish to see in the world. I love that.
Bought it outside Radio City when Phil and Bobby played there, and
right on.
It spoke to me.
Excellent. As long as we're talking fashion choices, this is my shirt from the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival.
It's my shirt from the Taylor Swift Reputation Tour 2018.
Dude,
right on.
This is where a lot of us wish we were this weekend, or certainly next weekend when Dead & Company would have been playing. But it was not to be, and we also got the news that Dead & Company are, as expected, calling off the whole tour, and this is going to be our reality for a while. But that's kind of why we're here, to bring the music and the community together in this different way. So
dance,
So anyway, and to augment my my New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival shirt, I've got a pot of red beans and andouille sausage cooking in the kitchen, and it's driving me crazy. So you're lucky this isn't smell-o-vision, because you guys would be going nuts too. But anyway, let's talk about this wonderful organization that we are supporting tonight. We've had tremendous organizations for each of these, and I'm really happy about this one because it's an organization I've known and supported since its inception. It's the Sweet Relief Musicians Fund. And it has some similar aims to our first beneficiary, which was Music Cares. The difference being that Music Cares really comes from the mainstream of the music industry, the Recording Academy, the Grammy people. Whereas Sweet Relief started totally as a grassroots initiative of musician to musician. It was originally formed, well, before it was formed, a wonderful singer-songwriter named Victoria Williams was on tour with Neil Young, started to feel ill, was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And like so many musicians, so many freelancers in all fields of endeavor, she was without medical insurance and without the means to pay for treatment. So the community of musicians around her, and she has a lot of admirers. She's not terribly well known, but she's one of those musicians. Other musicians love her songwriting, love her as a person. So a bunch of people came together and put out an album called Sweet Relief, which was based on a song of Victoria's. And it was all people covering Victoria Williams songs, including Lou Reed, Pearl Jam, Lucinda Williams, a tremendous cast of people. Wonderful album. It did really well. Victoria was able to start paying for her treatment but being the amazing person she is, and I'm happy to call her a friend, she then turned right around and founded Sweet Relief Musicians Fund to pay it forward. And so it's been an ongoing thing since, I guess, the early 90s. And it's really a wonderful organization. They have a special COVID-19 fund set up, which is not only for people who have the virus, but also people who can demonstrate economic impact from the virus. A lot of musicians who have had to cancel tours, cancel gigs, are trying to make do with doing webcasts from home, just like us. And so they are focusing on that right now. And of course, on your YouTube page, there is a donate button. It's on the right of mine. I don't know how yours is configured if you're watching on your phone or your pad or whatever, but you'll find it. It's a blue button, easy to find, and it says donate. And as I said, this is very peer-to-peer, very musician to musician. And if you're a musician or you know musicians who may be challenged by this, it may be especially resonant for you. So try to donate. I know that all of us are economically challenged right now because a lot of us can't go to work. We don't have our usual revenue stream, but it doesn't take a whole lot. If a few people kick in $5, if a lot of people kick in $1, I don't know how many people we have out watching out there right now, but it can add up. Small donations are great. And whatever you can spare to Sweet Relief, I can't recommend them highly enough.
And organizations like these, the money really does get to people who need it. Just a shout out to Music Cares from a previous week. A friend of mine is a road manager and just got a check from basically covering, some of his rent from a tour that he couldn't be doing these few months. Like all these organizations are really, really helping, and every drop helps.
And I think in the last couple of weeks, we've raised close to $40,000 from our screenings, and we'd love to keep that going. So anything you can do, as Gary says, if it's $1 or $5 or anything, is extremely helpful. So hit that button. Gary pointed to it. It's a blue button, one way or the other. Click the donate button, and we really appreciate it. And the musicians in need really appreciate it too.
Right, and the button will be in effect all through the video that we're going to show from Buckeye Lake, 1993. So you have all evening to do that, basically. You can do it now. You can also join the conversation if you have a YouTube account, log into it, and that will allow you to donate, and it'll also allow you to make your remarks.
And we love the comments. The comments are the best. We learn a lot from them, kind of incorporated into next week's show. So we love those comments. So keep them streaming on the side there.
We just got an anonymous donation of $100.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
I said small donations are good, but hey, that's good too.
Yeah, we'll take it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little about what we're about to see, huh?
Yeah.
June 11th, 1993, Buckeye Lake. A great tour, a phenomenal tour. As we all, well, maybe not all know, but the fall of 1992, the Dead booked off. They took the tour off. They canceled, and Jerry got healthy, came back in December of 92, and that began a run of the next little while, 6 months, maybe a little more, of really excellent shows. And there's the whole spring tour of 93, the very famous shows at Cal Expo 93, right through the summer shows in June. And there's some really good ones on this tour. And this one is, I don't know if it's the best one of the tour, but certainly up there is one of the top few of that very good tour. And I love this show. I always have. And from the opening right through the end, it's great stuff.
Yeah, the second set especially has a really beautiful flow to it that I sort of spoiled a little bit and listened last night, but it's just a really gorgeous move from song to song, and one of those great early 90s soundboard mixes that kind of sometimes sounds like an album, like really like stereo mix that sounds extremely good if you put it in your speakers and turn it up really loud, or headphones too, for that matter.
Yep, which we encourage you to do. Play it loud.
And also, one of the values of these early 90s shows is we get some of the songs that the Grateful Dead never formally recorded, which was a last burst of creativity from the band. And we're going to hear a few of them tonight. Maybe do we want to surprise them, or do we want to?
I don't know.
I always waver between that. But Robert Hunter and Jerry Garcia wrote some fantastic songs in those later years. And it's really good to have them preserved here. and hear them perform really well.
And we get a couple of the new ones in the first set, which is interesting. Jesse wrote some great liner notes for an album that just came out with all the later songs, the 92, 93 songs they played up through 95. And so he's very familiar with all these newer versions of things. And I mean, they played the heck out of these songs. And we're talking the songs, well, all of them, all the things that were on Ready or Not that came out a few months ago. 3 of those are on here. And I mean, those songs, sometimes with a lot of bands, the newer stuff. There's that episode of The Simpsons where Homer goes to see Bachman Turner Overdrive and he wants taking care of business, no new crap. And with the Dead, it wasn't like that. The songs, they fit. They were really good songs. And we're going to see that tonight. We're going to see 3 very good songs, very well performed. So it's really cool stuff.
I always found that to be sort of like a mark of enthusiasm when a band is like so into their new stuff that they just want to play it all the time, that they're like, really engaged with it. And I find that to be very true of listening to performances of these last batches of Dead tunes. I love hearing them engaged in, their whatever their newest trip is. In this case, it's some of the songs. One of the things that I'm really fond about from these shows is sort of the MIDI explorations that they're getting into. They're pretty contained in the drum space portion of the show tonight, but it's there's 40 minutes of great psychedelia basically coming up, which is another thing that they really leaned into pretty hard in these years.
Yeah, and it also, by 93, they were getting their MIDI thing, much more together, and the sounds were a little better integrated. When they started doing MIDI, and this was shown at the Truckin' Up to Buffalo video, Jerry did not have a full-time MIDI guitar yet. They had not integrated MIDI into his Tiger at that point. So he would only use MIDI during space, and he had just a stock Fender Stratocaster with a MIDI tracker on it. And the effects were kind of MIDI 101, they were just, this is fun. This is kind of like that, but later, especially when he had it integrated into Tiger, he could blend the natural guitar sound and the MIDI sound. So it always sounded like Jerry. It didn't sound like some guy playing around with MIDI. There was a great quote. Jerry had that sort of trumpet sound on his guitar. And, after a show, I guess during sound check or something, John Barlow came up to him and said, "Hey, you could have been a really good trumpeter." And Garcia just gave him that look over the top of his glasses and said, "I am a really good trumpeter."
Totally. I mean, another aspect of this is there's sort of the unseen band member on a lot of these jams, which is Bob Bralove, who's kind of pumping in, this really, kaleidoscopic array of sounds into the drums, into all the instruments, really, and you kind of. One of the things that I actually kind of really like during this period is when you kind of hear the tones kind of like ramp and change kind of mid-song, and you kind of have, the man behind the curtain is sort of tweaking, Jerry's guitar is going from, morphing from an electric guitar into a trumpet very, very slowly, and there's someone with his hand on the knob somewhere.
Yeah, Bob was, like you say, the unheralded guy who a lot of people don't know about Bob Bralove, but a lot of the sounds you hear in this later era Grateful Dead came from Bob's very creative mind. He was right there on stage, and he's a really good guy. So, Bob was a huge addition to the band sound in those years. Yeah,
Bralove actually came on to help Brent get his keyboard sound. Brent basically, what I heard was that for about the first 6 or 7 years he was in the Grateful Dead, he didn't use anything but the presets that came with his keyboards. He was not really a technocrat in that regard, whereas the other guys in the Dead were pretty fascinated with that stuff. And Bob came in to sort of help expand Brent's palette first, and then as MIDI became more successfully integrated into the band, more sophisticated. And you could get them tracking on guitars faster. There was not a time lag. Bob helped introduce those sounds to all the musicians, the drummers, of course. The drum sequences became really amazing. And I love those. I don't remember if that happens here on this one, but there were sometimes a point where the drummers would leave the stage, and before the guitarist would come back, it would just be Bob Bralove manipulating the sound.
Right. Yeah, a lot of reverberation and a lot of beats. I remember college shows, and you'd hear it, and then you'd open. I used to close my eyes a lot during drums and really get into it, and then I'd open my eyes and there'd be no one on stage. It would still be shaking. I love that.
Right. Indeed. So let's see. We should explain a couple of things about the visuals of this show, both the visuals that are in the show and the visuals that aren't at the end of the show.
Yeah, we've got some that aren't. We got visuals that are in the show. We got visuals that aren't in the show.
And you might have other visuals that aren't in the show as well, but those are not our responsibility.
That's entirely your business.
Every tape in the vault has a story, every single one. And when you get to know all those tapes, audio, video, you get to know the nuances of every tape. And a fact of the matter is, from a lot of the later videos, these were the videos that were shown on the screens, right? So when you go see a concert now, the ubiquitous screens, but back then they were kind of a new thing. And so the screens that were up at Dead shows, while the band was playing, often there would be, I don't know how, Gary, do you have an adjective to describe the quaint graphics, the graphics,
the preset? They're the presets.
They look quaint now. They kind of look appealingly retro in a way, because the visuals have gotten so much more sophisticated at shows.
They have, exactly. And we talked about this with the Buffalo show, that it was pretty much a clean feed, a little bit of effect on drums and bass, but otherwise no animated graphics. This show from '93, as do most of the shows from the era, we are going to see some of the graphics that were put on the screen with it. We can't do anything about that. That's on the master video. We don't have an alternate copy with it. So occasionally you're going to see some neat things, maybe some trains or some bears. You do see a lot of superimpositions where you'll see the band playing with the crowd dancing superimposed kind of a little bit under the band. Those are kind of cool, I think. And there's a lot that are really cool. Sometimes, occasionally, when Jerry might be ripping a big solo, there's an animated, and I kind of just want to see Jerry's fingers. But nonetheless, I'd rather see 80 or 90% of a Dead show and 10% of animation than no visuals at all. So
yeah, and I actually, my answer to that was, I know people got frustrated. They wanted to see a close up on Jerry's hands or Bob's hand, and I always said, I ain't here for guitar lessons. I'm basically here to let the music wash over me, and I spend a lot of time at shows with my eyes closed anyway.
And Gary, don't you have a story about some of the footage that's in the mix?
Yes, this delighted me when I watched a preview of this. During some of the more improvisational stretches, and I think during some of Space, they actually accessed some of the great body of archival Grateful Dead film that Justin Kreutzmann had been gathering over the years, and put in projects like Backstage Pass, and it turned up in Anthem to Beauty, and also in Long Strange Trip, the massive documentary. And I saw in there, when I was watching this yesterday, my home movies of the Grateful Dead from 1969 at the old New York State Pavilion in Flushing Meadow, New York. In my first full summer of total Deadhead mania, I had a nice little 8mm camera, and I shot some great footage, and the Dead wind up leasing it from me and using it in these projects. And when it turned up last night, I said, oh my God, that's my shot of Mickey playing a washboard, which may be something that was never repeated. And some great shots of Mickey and Pigpen bantering back and forth. And so I was really very, very touched to see that. And probably the biggest impact it had on me was I saw some of that stuff on the huge screen in Chicago at Fare Thee Well. Mm-hmm. Like I'm standing there, like just being totally overwhelmed emotionally by this music, and then there are my old home movies from the dawn of my Deadhead existence. So that was pretty cool.
Wow, 52-year-old footage. This is amazing.
Yeah,
very cool.
So this show is actually from the dawn of my Deadhead existence. As I was sort of poking around last night, I discovered that this was spring '93 is exactly when I got on the bus. I'm a pipsqueak compared to some heads, but I was. These were my first issues of Dupree's Diamond News. This is when I started listening to the Grateful Dead Hour. This is when I started keeping up with set lists, and it's kind of a time travel experience for me as well.
I love it. Perfect. I love hearing the stories of when people got on. Gary was 1968, and I was 15 years after that, and Jesse are 10 years after that, and people are still getting on, and in 10 years they will be getting on. It's amazing. One other technical thing to mention. Yes. The end of the show is missing from the video. And again, every tape has a story. Every tape has its nuances. So the Sugar Magnolia and Broke Down Palace are missing from the master video. These were never recorded specifically for public presentation like this. So what we've done is we've added the audio from the show. We went to the master soundboard digital audio tape yesterday, and the Crack crew did this incredible job by splicing it together. So you get the whole show. The last final song of the second set in Broke Down Palace, you get to make your own visuals in your mind, but the audio is there, so you'll get to hear the music. So that's exciting.
All right. Hey, should we get to our questions?
Yes. Jesse, you got some questions?
I do. I'm actually going to field one that came in a couple of weeks ago because I feel like I can answer it. But it's from listener Drew out in Boston, who says, I'm a musicology master's student at Brandeis, and as someone thinking of working on a thesis related to the dead, what kind of advice can you give to a young scholar embarking on their journey? And I just kind of wanted to shout out that there's this amazing academic Grateful Dead community out there of really committed scholars in all kinds of fields, musicology, the history, religious studies, all these things. And they meet every year in Albuquerque. This was the last thing that I got to do before I kind of folded into my little isolation, at the Southwest Popular Cultural Association meeting. So there's a large academic dead community. There are books called like Reading the Dead, and go poke around online. Find me. I can send you some places if anybody's looking to get into the Grateful Dead scholarly community.
I almost fielded that question a couple of weeks ago, and I'm glad you picked it up, Jesse.
Always want to get people on that bus.
Shall I take one?
Yes.
Okay. Well, someone asked, and this is interesting because we're showing a show with Vince. Is it true Jerry said Vince couldn't play an organ? Now, here's the story. When Vince joined the band sort of collectively decided that the Hammond B3 sound was kind of played out. It wasn't Jerry saying something to Vince. I think Phil also expressed that in a conversation I had with him around the time, that the Hammond B3 is like, it can be a really exciting instrument and it can really, get a crowd up, but it's kind of limited in its expressive range. It always sounds like pretty much like the same thing. And they just wanted bringing a new member into the band. They wanted a different set of colors. So I don't know if Vince actually expressed a desire to have a Hammond B3, but anyway, the band just sort of made a decision not to do that. So that's cool. The answer. Yeah. I like that.
Let's see what I get. I do want to say a quick shout out to our good friend and artist, Elijah at Online Ceramic. He's the one who created the graphic that we saw earlier. He's from Columbus, Ohio. He's an Ohio native, where our show, of course, is from Ohio. So Elijah, thanks to Online Ceramics. Cool guy, great artist, and we work with some amazingly talented people. So thanks for that. I got a two-part question from two different people. I'll roll them into one. One is from the Nuge, from Nathan Neugebauer, great guy. And the other one's from a fellow named Eric in Kingston, Ontario. The first question from Nathan was, my favorite thing of working for the Grateful Dead. I think, needless to say, it's my passion is this music and the band. But what I really do love about my job specifically is every single day is different. And I get asked that a lot. What's a typical day? And I wish I had an answer for a typical day. And I really don't. Every single day can be something different. And then something like this appears. We've got our Shakedown Stream, which is a whole new thing. And then I've got the radio show on Sirius. And every day there's calls coming in from my good friends Doran and Yvette and Mark Pincus, and every single day is a different project. And I love that about it. And even if it's a similar project as the Dave's Picks or it's a box set, it's still something brand new. It's a whole new creation, and I love it. I love that every single day is new and exciting, and it's full. There's never a dull moment. There's never an empty moment. It's a really good gig. And so the second question from Eric in Kingston, Ontario, is what is my favorite Canadian? I'm Canadian. Favorite Canadian Grateful Dead show. They played some good ones. I like a lot of them, a whole lot of them. But I'm going to go with the second night of Hamilton in 1990, the one that was in the box set. And I'm going to also say Toronto 77, Seneca College, and Vancouver 73 is a tremendous show. So there's a lot. In Kingswood, my second show, Kingswood in 87. The Dead did a lot of good Canadian shows. So I listen to them all the time, not just because they're Canadian, but because they're really good. So thank you for those questions.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Jesse?
Yeah. This is a good locally oriented question. Somebody's asking if there's any connection between the band playing this venue, Buckeye Lake, and just sort of the bohemian communities around Ohio. And I'm not sure there's a direct one-to-one connection between those things, but I thought it was worth pointing out that Ohio is college country. You know, that's where I went to school. I went to Oberlin in the north part of the state, and were I 5 years older, I'm positive I would have been at this show. And this show that we're about to watch is basically the weekend after school is out. This is lots of people celebrating the ends of their school year, you know, whether they've graduated, whether they're you know, just at the end of another year. And there are all these tons of little college towns just through, you know, within, you know, a rock's throw of Buckeye Lake. And these shows really became just the central point in this part of Ohio for deadheads for years. And there were sprawling campgrounds and hills of vending. And you look online and you see memories of these shows from people, and they're all just like dappled in sunshine. And you know, it sounds like this great, you know, hippie fest, except in the middle of Ohio. It's wonderful. It just seemed like such a great place to play.
Indeed.
Yeah, I look at the Dead's history in Ohio. I looked it up today. They played 49 times in Ohio, going back to '68. Then they were playing, I wouldn't say a circuit, but they played Columbus, and they played Cleveland and Cincinnati a lot in those first 5 years up until, well, really up till 72, 73. They were playing those places a lot, 76, 77. So they played Cleveland a lot. They had a good history in Ohio. They played there a heck of a lot. As Jesse says, there's a lot of colleges there and a lot of young people very hungry for good music, and that would be the Grateful Dead.
There's a really great story online about the time the Dead played a teen center in Cincinnati in '68. It was their first ever Ohio show, and there's like very little evidence of it. But this, you know, if you go to the blog Lost Live Dead, there's a whole page, and people show up in the comments section like reconstructing this kind of very, you know, hazy experience from, you know, a half a century ago, and you get this really cool picture of the Dead showing up to Ohio to, like, you know, plant their flag in the ground, basically.
I love it.
Okay. I forgot to thank Andy Della Rocca for that question about Vince and the organ. Now we go to Joe Cap, and this is a very, very apt question. He says, how many years was Donna Jean part of the band? And that was early 1972 to early 1979, so 7 years. Keith had joined in the fall of 1971. And then the band found out that Keith had a secret asset, this wonderful Southern singer who had been trained in the studios of Muscle Shoals. But I've got better news. Donna Jean's going to be in our band next Friday night. She's going to be our special guest when we show The Closing of Winterland.
Yes, indeed. We just spoke with her yesterday. She's as excited as we are, I think. So Donna Jean will be joining us, and Jesse, you're an amazing guest.
Thank you so much for having me.
But Donna Jean will also be an amazing guest as well. It's going to be exciting.
Honored to be here between Walton Week and Donna Jean Week.
Yeah, we're keeping our game. We're keeping our guest game strong here, man.
Indeed. It's going to be a good one. So next week for Donna Jean joining us for The Closing of Winterland. I'm sure she'll have some stories.
Oh, she's got great Closing Winterland stories. In fact, I first really met Donna Jean. I'd seen her like backstage at shows in the 70s, but the first time we really bonded was at the DVD release party for The Closing of Winterland, which was held at the Fillmore. And I had the great experience of dancing with Donna Jean on the dance floor at the Fillmore as she looked up at herself from 1978 and it was wonderfully surreal for both of us, I think. So we'll be talking about that next Friday. And hey, we're getting pretty close to.
We got 1 minute. So somewhere on your screen, down at the bottom of what you're watching now, there's a link to actually. We're going to bump you over to another YouTube page that'll show you the Buckeye Show. Jesse, thank you for joining us. Jesse, by the way, if you want to read a phenomenal book, check out Jesse's book. It's called Heads. You can find it online, Jesse Jarnow, Heads. It is a magnificent history book. It's a magnificent narrative.
Subtitled A Biography of Psychedelic America.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
And another great book in the works. So when you come back, depending on how long this virus goes, you can talk about the next project.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, Jesse Jarnow is always a valued member of our community and a terrific writer, and just a blast having you here, pal.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
We'll have you back for sure. We'll have you back.
Awesome.
Thanks everyone for go to the movie, the Buckeye, and please donate if you can.
Yes.
Sea Relief, we'd really appreciate it, and so would the musicians in need. So thank you, everybody.
Stay off the scaffolding.